Microphone on. This is the July 8th meeting of the Hillsborough County Charter Review Board, and I'm delighted that you're all here tonight. I'm calling the meeting to order now. Mr. Coons, our chaplain, is not available, so before we do the pledge, if you all would just take about 15 seconds here for some prayerful thoughts, and then we will resume the pledge. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to do the introductions. We had some absences last month. So if we could go around the room, and if you do a little bit of a pause, then we'll have enough time for the camera to go to the next person. So Mr. White, it was your suggestion that we do the introductions. So why don't you be the first person and give us your name and who appointed you to the position. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Gerald White, Charter Review Board members, and appointed by County Commissioner Myers. Glad to be here this evening.
He's that gentleman with the mask on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right.
Waiting. Jim Taylor, good to be here, appointed by Commissioner Ken Hagan.
Good evening, Melissa Snively, appointed by Commissioner Christine Miller. Yay.
Good evening. I'm Sid Shah, appointed by the Honorable Ken Hagan.
I think that's it for me. Art Wood, I was appointed by the fantastic Christine Miller. Thank you. That's it. We won't get any closer.
Okay. Hi. Deborah Joden, appointed by Donna Cameron Cepeda.
Hi, I'm Karen Giroche, and I was appointed by Commissioner Josh Wostel.
Hi, I'm Chris Ann Hall, and I was appointed by Donna Cameron Cepeda.
Hi, I'm Kim Droege. Good evening, everyone, and I was appointed by Commissioner Chris Bowles.
Greetings, I'm Carolyn Collins, appointed by the Distinguished Honorable Gwen Myers. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate that.
You forgot me.
Wait.
Who'd we miss? Oh,
Did you think I was on the legal
you merged
team?
right into the staff. I'm sorry. Go,
You can't
please.
see me on the camera.
Yeah.
Hi, all. I'm Sue Carlton, and I was appointed by Commissioner Harry Cohen.
And just in time. You're the last. As soon as the camera's on you, you got to give us your name and who appointed you. Yeah.
I'm late. Okay. Beth Latham, and I was appointed by Commissioner Bowles.
Okay. Last but not least, right? Thank you very
Oh,
much.
yes, that's right. Never least.
Thank you all for being here tonight. We're going to go through the agenda. The first item of business is public comment, and we do have some folks wanting to indicate they want to speak. And I did receive an email, which I'm going to read into the record, and then we'll begin with the folks that might be here. This is from a Melody Walters, and she writes, I just learned about the Hillsborough County Charter Review Board and how they work. I also just heard about the suggestion for Hillsborough County to go to 9 single-member districts. Wow, what a good idea. Another suggestion I have to add to that is that the representatives have to live in that district. Please let me know how I can get my opinion officially added to the other suggestions I am disabled, and coming to the meeting would be difficult for me, but if this is the only way, please let me know. Yeah. And then she has a question, would this mean disassembly the current county commissioners? I believe that would be in the best interest of those of us who live in South County. Thank you, signed Melody Walters. We have on staff some people, and present, some people who signed up for public speaking. And first thing I'd like to recognize is Mr. David Coleman. If you come forward, sir, give us your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes for your comments. Yeah.
My name is David Coleman. I live at 13618 North Florida Avenue, Tampa. Here we are to discuss the county charter once every 5 years, with partisan issues being brought like home rule and proper use of our tax dollars. Meanwhile, meetings aren't ADA accessible, many with no subtitles, not virtual, and we wait months for transcripts. There is a lack of transparency. Agenda items written by staff are in legalese and unintelligible by laymen, or I suspect even the commissioners themselves. Where is the $130 million in affordable housing money in the 25 budget? Commissioner Bowles is having staff do a deeper dive. I have been asking about the $2 billion savings account for 2 years. We need transparency from Bonnie Wise in the first place. There are ethics issues in just about every meeting I attend, and I've attended them for 2 years now. One commissioner screaming liar across the room at another multiple times. One commissioner removing himself after threatening 12 citizens attending a public town hall with arrest. The chair having a Muslim friend of mine removed by the sheriff as she asked for clarification. Recently threatening to have the Hope Church folk removed for murmuring, yet allowing Wastel to mock a presenter. One commissioner saying they couldn't sign a proclamation because it had the word Hindu in it, yet delivering a Christian prayer at every single meeting. I am sick of hearing about public safety and how we can't give a dime to the urban core and that we need firehouses. Take 4% of the $10 billion that's stashed in our savings account and write a check for $400 million. Start building stations tomorrow. Affordable housing being the #1 issue across the land. Why was the Affordable Housing Advisory Board canceled yesterday after we got here? And not a meeting again until September? Please take a close look at the planned Hillsborough charts in your agenda that you're going to be looking at. There is basically no projected growth in housing through 2050. We are entering a debate about home rule here at county. Hall's amendment says it's not partisan. It's absolutely a partisan issue. And Tallahassee pushes its will on us regardless of what we vote in. Just look at our elected school board being threatened and Van Nuys quick to react, removing so many books. Any protection we have against tally overreach needs to be maintained, and the county attorney's office told you on May 6th that there is no inconsistency between 2.01 and 9.01. In conclusion, let's take a log out of 601 Kennedy's eye so they can see to serve the residents of Hillsborough. Oh, and 9 single districts cannot occur. Democracy will live on in population, not area representation, and some of them absolutely being all county seats.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Gordon Schiff, do you wish to speak? Good, please come forward. Give us your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Gordon Schiff. My business is 4155 West Cypress Street. And I just wanted to speak a little bit on some ideas. I've been thinking about the composition of the commission, and you're beginning to get some public comments, and some other comments are apparently coming forward. And I just, at the outset, I just feel the county commission has structured functions very well. And that's partially because of what amendments have taken place in the past. But you have a county administrator who's very qualified. You have a county commission, two commissioners I know of who one of is speaking tonight were just elected. They're excellent people. These are people coming forward, and it's not easy to be a county commissioner. So let me start with that. But let me suggest to you that I've been thinking about this, making the commission 9 members and composing it in all single-member districts, and I'm having some intellectual difficulties with both. Under the current county charter, as you know, there's 7 members, 3 members are countywide, and every member of the public votes for, if you will, a majority of the commission. So I think there's value to having 3 county commissioners with countywide responsibilities who have to answer to all the voters. Our current countywide commissioners serve an important role, and they represent all citizens of the county. Second point is every citizen currently has the privilege to vote for and the right to be represented by a majority of the commission, currently 4 of 7. So if you went to 9, you'd want to make it, you know, still a majority if you went to 9. But the proposed charter amendment proposes that every citizen be represented, at least this is being discussed, by 1 of 9 members. And I have some real intellectual difficulty with that. Would changing to all single-member districts require redistricting? Probably, I would think so. And then you inevitably get into the question of gerrymandering and setting boundaries, which is not, it's a legislative process, but it's not necessarily fair. What would be the cost to the taxpayers? That's been raised by at least 1 member of this board already. You know, when you have a pie, you either make it smaller pieces or you have to make it a bigger pie when you add new members. So you need to think about, you know, costs, and you might want to even do an economic impact analysis to really understand it. But with that, I want to just suggest my observation from afar, from my vantage point, is you have a very good county commission. You have very good people running. You have very good people elected. They're doing a job. They're spending a lot of time. A number of them don't have to do this. They do it because they think it's the right thing to do. And just when you start messing with something that isn't broken, you know the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I appreciate your time. Again, those are my initial thoughts. I may be back, and I appreciate, Mr. Chair, you letting me have the time.
Thank you, sir. Also signed up is Quentin Robinson. Are you available, Mr. Robinson? Yes, sir. Oh, please, come forward. Give us your name and address for the record, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Sure thing. My name is Quentin Robinson, candidate for County Commissioner, District 3. I reside at 1903 Meridale Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33612. And just to add to the comments before me, I don't have anything prepared. I figured it was very important for me to at least weigh in as a candidate and as a public citizen, a private citizen, in light that this charter only meets every 5 years. My concern is that the proposal should be calculated based on population. So I just had a chance to read over some of the things that was here, and I'll just like to hear how this is planned to be fleshed out over the next 5 years, and if possible, is this something that we can actually bring to the public for a vote, just not here with the charter, but amongst the citizens in Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I don't have any of the names, but is there anyone else that wishes to make a public comment? Anyone else? Thank you. Well, that'll close public comment. Next item of business is the approval of the minutes. This is from our June 10th meeting. They have been distributed. Is there anyone that wishes to make any changes, amendments? May I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Who is that? Mr. Drogi? Thank you very much. We have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Karen Jaroche. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item of business, we get to hear from a wonderful individual who, well, I'll let him speak for himself. I could go on for 5 or 10 minutes telling you about how wonderful he is. And you started hearing some of that already. But if you could, please follow the order of the fire chief issue and then the single-member districts, because we're going to roll from that topic into a continuation of it. So, Commissioner Bowles, welcome. I'm so glad you're here with us and looking forward to hearing your thoughts on both of these matters. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Since we do have, I proffered earlier before most of you got here about a 4-hour meeting, right? And I know that that's not what you guys want, so I'm going to keep it a little shorter than that. So I'm going to read a little bit. But first, I do want to thank each of you for your service here. I know that you were appointed or voluntold or however you want to say it, but the commissioners, we all do really, truly appreciate your time. and being able to make it. And I just want you to know that I know I'm grateful. I know Commissioner Miller is grateful, and that, you know, just keep doing what you're doing. Just work, you'll work it out. And as Chair Wood was talking about, I'm going to talk about the fire chief and then also about the single-member districts, or at least adding more districts and to what we currently have. So for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm currently the District 6 County Commissioner who's running countywide. I worked 28 years as a firefighter here in Hillsborough County. I retired as a battalion chief. I've served our community both as an employee, an advocate, and now as an elected official. I think that has given me a really unique perspective on our community. It has given me, you know, from kind of an inside and from an outside perspective. And it has also allowed me over those 28 years to build a lot of relationships with our staff here, some of those that are here, and also our elected leaders over the years, some that we've mentioned before. Tonight, kind of one of the issues that's never been brought up before, it's unique. This is a kind of a one, it seems maybe a one-off. The second issue we'll talk about has been brought up several times. But tonight, one of the things I wanted to bring up was about the fire chief. All of you should have at least received some information that I sent you. There was some handouts or some background information. Some of that was detailed, and we had some of my comments, there was a letter I sent in February with my comments on this, the job description of the fire chief, some demographic data of other comparable departments and other jurisdictions, along with the departmental budget. And I just wanted to give you kind of a little bit of everything that I've talked about and give you some perspective of why some of these I think is important, not just to say the department's big, but to show you that the department's big, or to say that we are falling behind, but to show you that we're falling behind, to see that you can actually put something, not just with the words, but some pictures to go with it, if you will. So hopefully as we go along, you can have that to either reference and or if you need to ask some questions at the end, I'm happy to do that. So to give you a little historical perspective on the fire department, about 50 years ago, our commissioners decided to make our fire department and EMS professional. And from that point, we went about 25 years later, and about a master plan was created to address our critical infrastructure needs. As we were growing and we continue to grow, we need to, we have a CIP, and that's what keeps us on the forefront of not falling behind, but staying ahead of the curve, if you will. So now today, we stand, what I believe, at another pivotal point. During my 28 years working for Hillsborough County as an employee, I've served under 4 county administrators and 5 different fire chiefs. That just means I've been here pretty long, maybe as long as Ms. Ferris over here, but not quite as long. But during that time, what I can definitely say is that during some of those administrations, there's been an ebb and a flow of how public safety and priorities are placed, at least in our budgetary needs and then as on our policy. And that doesn't mean that we're doing a bad job. It just means that we can find better ways, and we have to have what ends up being balanced between, do we need pickleball courts? And I love pickleball courts, and I love the parks, and I love dog parks and all that, and libraries, and I love the arts and all these things. But when it comes down to breaking down the core issues, I think that it comes right back again to safety and security of our community. And some of that also falls into infrastructure, which is roads and, of course, stormwater and all the other things. But it all kind of folds together. And some of those don't fall into the core issues. I will say, and I have to give accolades to Bonnie Wise, our county administrator, that she and under her team have made really robust efforts over the last, since her appointment to county administrator, to really put public safety on the front burner. That wasn't always necessarily the case. Again, it wasn't, we had the Great Recession. We all know this, there was a big problem back then. Tax rolls were rolled back, and we had a lot of issues with maintaining some of the budgetary issues. But she has really done a really good job, and her staff, and for that I'm grateful, one, as a former fire department employee and also as a commissioner now, and a resident of this community. But the change I'm asking for, though, is bigger than she and I, bigger than us, bigger than everyone in this room, because it's about the long-term stability. We can't have an ebb and flow. We got to maintain the course. If you look at that, one of those handouts, I don't know what page it is. Give me a second.
The handouts did go out about a week ago, Chris.
It's about, well, it says fire rescue deficits, it's about 6 pages in. That just goes to show you, that's the 28 stations that currently, based on our response time set by national standards, that we don't have, that we're slated to have. Problem is you got to have, we can build the buildings, but we can't put the people in. You can't hire the people. It's just, that's just what's happened over time, is that we keep slipping behind. Again, fortunately under our current administration, Bonnie's really done a good job of keeping our head above water on this, but we could do better. And I think that part of the problem is that the fire chief is relegated to being kind of under the table. There'll probably be some concerns raised by some, maybe as you guys move along, whether it's through someone else coming to speak, about the reduced emphasis on other goals and priorities, the politicization of the position, or balancing the ledger against something else. What else is another priority? Ultimately, in my opinion, those don't measure up to the needs and our ability to serve our community in the best way possible. And I'll finish this part up, and then I'll entertain a few questions, and I'll move on to the other. Is that okay, Chair? Or would you rather me do everything and get it all done at one time?
Well, do everything you can possibly say with the chief.
Yes.
And then I'd like to explore how the group feels about it before we move on.
Gotcha. So one last point about the fire chief. So we have other county department leaders. We have Ms. Zornita here with planning, and other departments. You've had Adam Gormley here. You've had others, Tom Fessler, I think, here. That you've had other department leaders who can speak directly to the county administrator and to the board. I have regular conversations with them all the time. I could speak with her, of course. Our position is a little different, but the point, I have regular conversations with these department heads and directors all the time. The problem is I can't have a conversation with the fire chief to ask him, hey, what's going on in the fire department? If I was Commissioner X, it doesn't matter. It's me, because he's under the county administrator, under a deputy administrator, and then is the fire chief. He kind of, again, sits under the table. And when we're talking about critical infrastructure needs, policies, decisions, if I wanted to know something, if I'm having a conversation with him, or he feels like he would like to have a conversation, or she, because we have a female fire chief in Tampa, he can't do that without feeling that he has to report to his administrator, and rightfully so. There's a chain of command. That we have a chain of command in the fire department. There's a chain of command here. My belief is that that chain of command, at the very least, should be at a higher level, and that reporting should be to the board. Now I gave some references and some examples of some of those that report directly to the board, so it's not unprecedented. It would be just a little different than what we're used to. You can see that we have some of the demographic stuff that Ms. Ornita's department's going to provide, but some that I provided as well. So we're the third largest department or county in the state, populace-wise. The fifth largest for population density. Got a lot going on here, and if we can't get our policies and things that are not being filtered and kind of relegated to someone else, that you're not getting the direct, straight dope, if you will, from the person, I think that creates a problem for us as we move forward. Again, placing the fire chief at the table, I think, reinforces our commitment to the community, protecting lives and our property, and ensuring that we can continue to adapt and quickly to emerge to any challenges that come forward. This is why I'm asking all of you to at least consider the future and let the voters decide if this is what's best for Hillsborough County. And if I may, just for a moment,
sure,
gentlemen, the gentleman that spoke last, if I'm correct, anything that you guys decide to move forward has to go to the voters. Is that correct? So the final decision is not here, sir. The final decision is with the voters. So you can have that, rest assured.
Would you like to, are you available for questions on your material?
I'm here all
Let me see if
night.
anyone here, if any of the board members have a question about the material that was sent to you. Recognize Mrs. Drosh.
Hi,
Yeah, hi, good to see you.
nice to see you as well.
I didn't see, is there an org chart for who currently reports to the Board of County Commissioners and who currently reports, like what departments report directly to the county administrator?
There is an so in an abundance of brevity, I wanted not to inundate you with a whole bunch of information. But yes, if you go to our website, but it is available on our website.
Okay.
Meaning the county's website. And so there's whether 9 or 10 different directors that report to the deputy county administrator, who reports to the county administrator, who then reports to the board. Ultimately, it's Bonnie. And then you have, obviously, our county attorney as well that reports to the board.
Yeah, among your material was a list of the people
Yeah.
that
Oh.
report.
The auditor.
You want to read, I believe it was county attorney, county auditor. There was something, a director of,
County administrator
Okay.
and the director of EPC.
EPC,
They're
correct.
all
EPC.
contract attorneys with
and they go directly, they're the only ones that go
hired and
directly
fired and direct report to
to
the board.
those four positions.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was that was mentioned somewhere in your material.
That's
So
correct.
without seeing a whole organization chart, there are four pieces,
Correct.
four groups in the county that swing around and report directly to, which kind of makes sense. I mean, the auditor, if they're going to audit the county administrator, they ought to be reporting to the board. So I get some of that, yeah.
Yeah, no, I do as well.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a question over here, sir.
Yes, sir. May I recognize you?
And the sheriff reports directly to the BOCC, correct?
No, sir.
No?
No, sheriff is elected a constitutional officer, so he's elected in his own right. He has to go through the county commission for his budget, so there is a connection there, but he doesn't report to them.
Got it.
So, and I think to just expound upon that, so the
Sure.
sheriff, the county, the clerk, the tax office, the property appraiser, supervisor of elections, all your constitutional officers do not report to the board, but they work with Board of County Commissioners on, developing their budgets. So,
Let me, Ms. Snively, for a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hi.
Thank you, Commissioner,
Yeah.
for being here this evening.
Of course.
Appreciate the information that you've provided us.
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to this meeting, I had a few questions. Thank you for the Fire Rescue Services budget page. I wasn't sure if there was any fiscal impact that we should be notating for a change that you're proposing.
well, so in some of the information that I gave you, I mentioned that it's the largest budget, the largest, and I just wanted to show you that it is one of the largest budgets, and that's the reason why I provided that. There would not be any fiscal impact in this outside of whatever, if it was to take place, that I'll call it the negotiations of the budget would not be through the county administrator, it would be with the county administrator and the board.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I just wanted to verify that there was little to no fiscal impact that I could
Not that I could.
take
that I
away
could
from your
determine either.
material, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then, may I ask another
Yes, please,
couple
go
of
ahead.
questions? Okay, thank you, sir. The comparable fire department reporting structures by jurisdiction, I was a little bit confused about the roles for each of the counties that were listed, and I see you notated here, whether this person was a decision maker or not. Is the public safety director also the fire chief, or is the fire chief a separate position for some of these?
So in each one of those positions on there, the fire chief is a separate position. So there would be, the public safety director would be someone that the fire chief would be reporting to.
I see.
So
Okay, so that's
in
kind of
some-
the hierarchy of,
Correct. So like a public safety director would be the equivalent of a deputy county administrator.
Okay.
Who would then go to the county administrator and then the board.
Okay, okay,
So-
thank you for clarifying
Mhm.
that. Is there a particular county or counties where this infrastructure exists currently that we could look at as an
So-
example and that's successful?
Well, Palm Beach was doing it for a while, and then they changed over to a public safety director. And one of the, if you wanted to kind of look, we use Tampa, for example, as a comparable. Now, I know our structures are different, city council's different than the mayor, but it is one of those situations where the mayor and the fire chief, it's a direct report, and who ultimately makes the final decision on yes or no's. And we use them for comparables, for example, for our for hiring, you know, and how the contracts that are done in our working conditions, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that would be the closest one here. Currently around the state, there are some that there's 3 different types of, and I would lean in on Mary Helen Ferris because I'm probably going to misstate, but there's 3 types of structures that you can do where there's where everyone reports to the board, and then there's some report that there's a strong mayor, essentially, and then there's the county administration system we have. So, and I think there's only 4 or 5 counties in the state that do everybody reports to the board, and they're very small counties. The larger ones that we have, it's kind of a mix. If you see Broward, they report to the sheriff, who is a constitutional. And then if you report to Miami-Dade, I think it's public safety director. I got it in front of me. So, so would it be an outlier? Possibly, yeah.
Or a role model?
Or a role model, yeah. That could be, it worked for Palm Beach, and I had tried to, a former commissioner that was there, who's now a legislator, was one of the people I was gonna have speak, and just couldn't work. Summer plans get in the way. But it worked out for a while, and it wasn't any particular reason that it stopped. I mean, I could speculate that the public safety director ended up being the retired fire chief. So I think it worked out for them, you know, in one way or another. So beyond that, you know, this is, again, just maybe a different way of looking at it, and just appreciate the conversation about talking about this.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions, but I'd like to hear from other members and questions from other
I've had
participants.
Ms. Galls
Thank you.
in, please.
Hi, Commissioner. I know you're relatively new as a commissioner and all that, but I'm interested, can you give us a scenario where you feel like communication has been thwarted because of the way it's set up now, or even whether you've seen something happen or you felt like something didn't rise up to the level it could be, or even a scenario in which you could see it very easily happening?
Well, currently as it is, so if I worked under Clayman, I worked under Pat Bean, I worked under Merrill, and I've worked under Bonnie. So if I said there was an ebb and then a flow, an ebb and then a flow, that was my experience. So if you can infer from that. So over those years, and I understand during the last ebb, we had a big problem here, and that was the recession. However, once we emerged from that, there was never any urgency or anything to set aside. We made a lot of concessions in the county to not do brownouts, not to shut down fire stations, those kind of things. The sheriff's office made a number of concessions as well to ensure that we were going to have the public safety and service that our citizens are used to receiving. But to specifically say, I'd rather not say it in those manners, but I can say that from 2008 up until 2019, we had 0 firehouses built. We had rebuilds, but we had no new, and this is the reason why there's 28 sitting on here. From 2002 to 2008, there were 6 built. So, and this is not about adding people to the ledger, not adding employees. This is about service to the community. This is about meeting national standards. And this is one of the reasons why, I feel so, strongly about this. So I can't say specific, I'm going to give you a specific, but, and I'm not trying to avoid your question.
No,
I'm just trying to be polite
No, I
about
appreciate that.
the answer.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Hall? then Ms. Droege, and then Mr. Taylor.
So I really appreciate your time on this, and I'm a little bit behind the curve, so I might be asking you some questions that.
That's okay.
Because I really, really want to understand this. I'm a former military girl, so chain of command, I understand how important that is, and I also understand how important communication is. And the scenario that you described to me causes me pause from the very beginning. Anytime you have to communicate through multiple people, I just remember that game we played as kids called telephone. You know, when it gets around, who knows what it gets to when it gets to the final place, what it actually is. So I entirely sympathize with that. As a homeowner here in Hillsborough County, I also believe in the importance of rapid response and communication, and of all the things that we fund in Hillsborough County, fire should be on the top of the list and not on the bottom. Just as a person who was also an EMT, I know you guys do more than put out fires.
Correct.
So my question is, first, one of chain of command. Currently, the fire chief is appointed by the county administrator. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The scenario of Palm Beach County Charter where the fire chief reports directly to the board, however, in this case, the Board of County Commissioners selects the fire chief.
That's correct. In that particular case.
So to me, that kind of makes more sense because you should have to report to whom you are selected by. So my first question is, as far as your chain of command goes, how many people, are there any people that you have to communicate to before you get to the county administrator?
For the fire chief?
Yes.
One.
Okay.
Okay, so that would be the deputy county administrator.
All right, and then you have to rely on the deputy county administrator to speak to the county administrator, and then you have to rely on the county administrator to speak to the Board of County Commissioners. Am I correct about that flow?
Correct.
Sorry, I'm a flow chart girl too. So,
You're spot on.
okay. My next question, because I'm just putting
Throw it out there.
putting facts in my basket here. Am I to understand that as a fire chief, because you're not at the moment, but as a fire chief, you have to wait to be invited to speak to the Board of County Commissioners?
Yes.
Okay.
He's an employee.
So then my final, the way it's built kind of makes sense, because I don't want my employees going over my head either, right? Because then we
Precisely.
got problems.
And I agree with that hierarchy.
Yeah, so.
There is a chain of command, and I'm okay with that. I just believe the chain needs to move a little bit.
So my final question for you is this. Is your proposal that now the Board of County Commissioners should select the fire chief?
Select a new fire chief?
No,
Oh.
that they should be the entities that select the fire chief?
Sure.
Because I'm also, that's part of what your proposal is then?
Yes.
All right, I'm tracking. We're good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the questions.
Ms. Droege, and then Mr. Taylor.
Hi, Commissioner. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Chris Ann, because you asked some of my questions that I wanted to get clear. I think it might be, I don't recall this being in the material that you submitted previously. That's okay. I know you can answer this. It might be beneficial to highlight, since you went through from 2002 to the present, and the deficit we have in firehouses, it might be interesting to know the change in response time.
So what we want for response times is within 4 minutes or so, 4.5 minutes. Now, again, the quickest way to get from point A to point C is to put a point B in between. And what we look at, and it's not art, so these, I'm kind of skipping around a little bit in my talking, but when you look at this list here, this list is based on population density and response times to those areas. So it's not random or arbitrary or because it's a rich area or a poor area. It's about where we're running the most calls the most of the time. And that's how we're doing. There's a heat map that we generate, and that's kind of looking at that. And it kind of goes along with what planning is looking at as well. As we're looking towards the future, we're looking at where the growth is going to happen. A lot of that growth, as we know, is in where you live and Commissioner Miller's area. And those times as you're getting more population, what's happening is that you also get calls that are going out. So you can have a call. Let's use Sun City. You got 3 different stations there. You got one at 17 in Ruskin. You got one there in the middle, Sun City, and you got one in Waimama. But all along 674. If 28 is the station that you're out, if that's out on a call, now they have multiple units on there, but let's say it's a fire, so all of them are gone. The next closest station is either going to be in Ruskin or in Waimama. So what would have taken 2.5 minutes to get across the street or 4 minutes down the road or to Kings Point, right, 4 minutes to get to your home is not going to take maybe 8 minutes or longer because they're coming from Ruskin. Now, if that unit's out, now you're relying on Waimama. And now if that unit's out, now you're relying on something else. And there's a cascade effect. Now, it doesn't always happen like that, but that just gives you an example of how important it is to make sure that we have enough stations in those areas that we have the population density so that we can respond not just to our fires, but also to emergency medical calls as well.
I have another.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, and I don't think we should ever be afraid to talk about the cascading effect of response times because it's a reality. When you dial 911, you want someone to help you, like right now. And you mentioned 674, so this brings up another issue, which is transportation. Because you and I have both seen what happens on every day on 674 because of the size of the road and the congestion of the traffic and the fact that people will not get over. I mean, seriously, they will not get over, even if they have a place to go. So this brings up another facet of response times is the clogged arteries and the lack of infrastructure.
And to that point, I agree that we need to bolster that. And again, I think along with, I'm not sure, are you going to speak, Commissioner Miller? No, you're just here observing? But I think we're both committed to ensuring that we can do our damnedest to make sure that we're taking care of our roads, more than just resurfacing.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Commissioner,
Jim?
good to see you, sir.
Good. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Snively actually took several of my questions.
Oh, good.
Whatever, that's totally fine. But actually, back to that chart.
Which
because,
one? There's lots of
The
them.
comparable fire departments
Yes,
and
sir.
looking what other jurisdictions are doing. Because a lot of the dialogue I'm hearing, I genuinely empathize and like, yeah, that's a problem. Traffic density, roads, all that. I mean, call times absolutely should be as minor as possible. Get to the person need as quickly as possible. But some of that I also view as that's a policy decision for you and your colleagues to determine how to mitigate and how to resolve some of that. So I look at, all right, by taking your example of we're going to kind of adjust the chain of command, move this position up, and looking at best practices, essentially looking at what other comparable counties do. And I respect Miami-Dade is not Hillsborough, Broward is not Hillsborough.
Thank goodness.
Yep, they have 10 times the cities. I don't know what their MOUs are in terms of who has jurisdiction over responders, first responders, but it is still valuable to know these massive counties, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, they do have that additional buffer in there, that layer in there for a reason. There may be a lot of wisdom in there, maybe to quote, Ms. Snively, maybe it's time to, what word did you use?
Role model.
Be a role model.
Be a
but
leader.
You still look at that and you're like, okay, they have this in there for a reason. And so then I use the, fire stations not being built during, the recession and the ebb and flow of county managers. How does how would that chain of command affect any of that? How would the chain of command expedited more fire stations? Because again, I come back to, is it a structural change, or does it come down to you and your colleagues have to make hard but very necessary policy changes? I'll stop there.
Yes. That's the short answer. So I think you bring up some good points, and that, looking at others to see best practices, and I understand that. Like Palm Beach, they put a trap door in there. If there's a period of time, we can get out of this if we need to. And if you look at that's the language that came from their charter. I think, though, that it does come down to us making policy decisions, and I'm not afraid to be one of the us, as opposed to letting someone tell me what the best policy should be to follow, if that makes sense. I'm okay saying we need to prioritize a few things as opposed to a few pickleball courts or a dog park. Because when you call 911, as Ms. Droege said, you want someone to get there. And we're doing, if you look at our customer service rating for fire rescue, 99 or 98%. It's off the chart. It's at pretty much as high as it could be. But the opportunities to do things and put this higher on the docket, if you will, speaking in lawyer terms, move it up out of the bullpen there, is to have those direct conversations. And I would never put the fire chief in a position where I would have a conversation with him that had anything outside of saying, how's your boy doing, that kind of thing, because we are friends. But beyond that, never put him in a position where he'd have to make some kind of policy decision or some kind of put him in that process right now where I could have that with Melissa or Adam Gormley or Kim Byer. I can have those conversations without having to go through somebody else, and she can have that conversation at least with me without having to go through that. Now, they're not at the direct report level, so be that's a change that could happen as well, but that's not what I'm asking for. That would have to be something that would have to happen internally. But again, being able to have those direct conversations with the elected leaders, I think is important, especially when you have 1,300 members, employees, $300 million budget. Everyone talks about how big the budget is. There's $1.1 billion. I think Mr. Coleman back here has mentioned it in several meetings over the last several years, how big public safety's budget is. And he's right. It takes a lot to keep us safe. And he's absolutely correct. But at that same time, we're not able to have that discussion internally without having to go through the telephone game to some degree. And I don't think they're changing it. They're just not necessarily given the policy that we as elected officials don't want to hear. It's easier for someone to say, the county administrator is recommending this, as opposed to, I got to make a decision on whether or not this is the right thing to do or not. I'm not afraid to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Droege?
I have a follow-on question to Ms. Hall's points. So right now, you said the fire chief reports to the deputy, who reports to the county administrator, right?
Correct.
Now, and the fire chief is hired by the county administrator.
Correct.
And I'm assuming, well, no, I won't assume. Is that an application process?
Yes and no. I think that they've done some national searches in the past. Our current fire chief was the administrative chief before, so he kind of, I don't want to say he was anointed, but he certainly had all the credentials for the position. So there's an application process, but I don't know specifically if he filled out an application with HR to move up. But
Okay, so my question is, if it was changed to the fire chief reporting directly to the Board of County Commissioners, and to follow on to Ms. Hall's point that whoever you report to has to hire you, how do you envision that, would it be the same kind of process by the Board of County Commissioners, regardless of the number?
What are you implying?
I'm not applying anything.
No. Yeah, I think it'd be no different than the county administrator, the county attorney, the county auditor. I mean, there's a process in place. I mean, just mimic that. Just shape it to be what it is for, we don't have to reinvent a wheel, that we had a wheel that's already there.
Okay, so, but my question is more is, right now, the county administrator hires the fire chief. And if that was changed to the Board of County Commissioners, how would that work? Would it be like a majority vote?
I'd say it would be the same process. Yes. I think we just, if we looked at what we just did for Ms. Genzarli, she was acting county auditor, yes? And by a vote, we gave her a 1-year contract. I think it was 1 year. Yeah, so, I mean, she's doing a fantastic job as well, not because of that, just because of the timeframes. So by majority vote, she got the job.
I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I was trying
You're
to
not putting me in the
clarify
spot.
how that process would change if this reporting structure was changed.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that, and clarity is, important, and I just wanted to give you an example of something that I was part of that we just did for a direct report.
Are there other questions?
Mr. White, you don't have any questions, sir? You look like you wanted to say something. I'm here. Might as well get it. Get me why you got me.
Well, this is truly a fireball. I'm sitting here thinking, you mentioned the former county administrators and the reporting process of the fire chief, and I'm really trying to get my head around what truly has been wrong with the process, and why one wouldn't like the administrator, quote unquote, the fire chief, the administrator. And then the proposals to have the Board of County Commissioners by a supermajority vote, that's what you're calling for, right? A supermajority vote, appoint the fire chief. Why not have the fire chief elected?
That would be a state constitutional issue, which ain't gonna happen. There's 5. Yeah.
You can't.
And I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on TV. That's a state constitution
I
issue.
certainly haven't done the research needed to fully answer that.
Yeah.
So, I'm a citizen. I'm like, well, if the fire chief is gonna report to anyone outside of the administrator, I'm an advocate for having the fire chief report directly to the people by way of the vote. The two most powerful political positions in Hillsborough County is the fire chief and the sheriff. The sheriff is elected by the people. And so if there's a problem, first I would like to clearly understand the root of the problem, the longevity of the problem, and a true solution by some sort of proposed resolution document to kind of outline it, other than just saying the Board of County Commissioners appoint the fire chief. We have a couple of long-sitting county commissioners, and I have never heard of an issue. I've sat on the Citizen Advisory Committee. I've been on several of these boards, hospital authority, you name it, and I've never heard a true problem with the structure that we have in place. And so I'm curious, I'm interested, but I really would like to know more about what's going on. And the most powerful group in this county is the fire union, and I hadn't heard a peep out of the fire union, and I spent 36 years in the IBEW, vice president of my local, and I've never heard the fire union members raise any kind of concern about the structure of the reporting process, and so I'm just curious.
Do you want to comment on that or not?
Well, what is it that you're exactly curious? You said a lot, and to specifically answer, you're curious about the longevity, how long the problem has been around. So I don't know if it's necessarily a problem. I think it's the difference of philosophy in how we approach things, whether it's in politics, right? In the winds of change, politics blow one way or the other. 4 years ago, it was a different way, a little different now. Before that, it was different, right? So over time, goals and priorities and directives move. I think in this particular, so to say that the fire chief or anybody above them, whether it's been an administrator or deputy administrator, or even the board itself, having some issues with it, it's not as simple as that. I think it's how we want to move forward in today. And if you look backwards at how the boards at those times, they made a determination as to where they wanted to direct their priorities. Sometimes priorities are towards affordable housing, and then you had a whole ordinance that came out of that, 1919. That just got repealed. You got a new board, new priorities, new directives. So as the winds of change come in, the political winds, you're going to have those differences.
May I ask Ms. Hall to make a comment? She's been anxious to say
Can I
something.
finish that before
Oh,
you
I'm
go?
sorry, go ahead.
Well, so I'm trying to understand.
Mhm.
So it will be moving from an administrative appointment to a political appointment if the Board of County Commissioners made the appointment of the fire chief, and that's what you're asking. You're asking for a political appointee position.
I'm asking for an appointee by political leaders. I don't know if it's the same thing.
Okay.
Would you say that the county attorney is political?
Well, the only difference for that position is that that individual is an officer of the court. Am I correct? That's the difference.
How is that different? I'm trying to understand.
Well, I'm saying it's an officer of the court, and in the real sense, yes, you could say by the politicians, the elected officials appointing the county attorney, it's a political appointment, yes. But on top of that, it's a totally different position because that individual is an officer of the court. And so I think the public and myself hold that position in a different kind of standard because of the position itself and the separation of power and all that kind of stuff related to being an officer of the court.
Okay.
And I'm just a layperson, but that's just my thought.
Yeah.
But I just want you to know, I'm curious about this request, and, you know, I would like to actually, I gotta be careful here, but, you know, I see his document, but we need something more of a resolution kind of form and allow, you know, if they were to go that direction, so we can actually see what something like that will look like in a resolution kind of form. Just thinking out loud. I got to be careful because, you know, this is a very, very special, important position. And so this is something that definitely and truly would grab the attention of every citizen in Hillsborough County, whether you live inside the cities or in unincorporated Hillsborough County.
I agree. Thank you. I do. They're very important.
May I have Ms. Hall make a comment? I'm anxious to move this along. Go ahead, Ms. Hall.
No, I was just going to say we would not have to amend the state constitution because it's not a constitutional officer. We would have to amend the local charter to do that. That would take a referendum by the charter to make the fire chief an elected official. But the question is, that seems to be making this more complicated than necessary. Because please correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe this will address Mr. Taylor's comment as well. It's not a matter of having to simply go through someone like a conduit. It's having someone interpret your needs as important enough to be brought forward to the board. Is that correct?
Yes, that's a good way of
So when you're
describing
talking about the ebbs and the flows, what's really happening is you're having someone that's prioritizing your needs at a lower level than other needs, and you can't break through that to get there. And when you can't break through that prioritization, whether it's legitimate or personal, because we're all people, we can just be honest here, the county commissioners are not able to have access to the information necessary to make the decisions necessary to prioritize the fire department because there's a block. Am I communicating that?
So in my short time, my 7.5 months, 6.5 months, 6.5 months, I guess, or whatever, 7.5 months, that as I see the structure, so maybe this can answer Mr. White's question, why is this has never come up before? I was a member and a officer of the Fraternal Labor Organization for Hillsborough County for 26 years. So I get what you're saying. But being here and talking about this is, lost my train of thought. The ability to have that conversation with them it would be awkward because I don't want to put the fire chief in a position that he feels like he left something out or something didn't get reported to his boss, who is still got another boss, kind of and again, and it's not just now, it's not now per se. I mean, there's still prioritizations.
Right, but it's not
But-
about the fire chief making policy decisions.
No.
It's about the fire chief having an input and having an impact on policy decisions.
Yes.
And that's not getting through because sometimes the chain of command does not prioritize it.
In my history, yes, that's the ebb and the flow. We're in the flow period.
Dr. Collins, did you wish to say something?
Yeah, I did. I got a couple of questions, and they may not be questions for answers, but as we move forward with this, it's going to help me because I'm real cloudy with the safety directors that I'm seeing, and on the comparative chart that you gave, I'm going to ask you you've done a great job. You've covered a number of the larger areas, but simply because of 3 other caveats that I am aware of, I would love to see where Leon County would be on this. Like, what do they have? Do they have a safety director? And it's for totally a different reason when I look at the county and look at the...
Why Leon, may I ask?
Leon, for me, is because of, I think it's more of a college town than some of these others. And I
Okay.
think the student population there is larger, and that's the only reason I just asked. Only because, and it's in North Florida, and I know it's not as large, as the Miami-Dade, Broward, those areas as we are in Orlando. But I just wanted to see what something else had that had a large population of people that may need the safety, fire safety, whatever. I also don't
Can I
clearly-
address, may I address that? The reason that this is structured like it is, starting with Miami, Broward, Hillsborough, Palm, and Orange County, those are the top 5
Right.
in that order, populous counties.
I
And
got
then
it.
I went to what we have as comparables that are close in municipalities. And then again, just to give 2 other examples at the bottom was Sarasota. And looking at the counties that surround us comparatively with those that are the most populous. And so that was the reason why it's these particular ones.
No,
They were
there's
not
nothing
random.
wrong with this.
Yeah, no, I
No,
understand.
what I'm saying is great,
Yeah.
because I see the larger counties as I look based on county size.
Yeah.
I also see the Tampa Bay areas.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to see what one looked like that had I would call it a substantive area of interest around it that was not in this particular area, because it tends to be North Florida and small anyway. Not that it's the state capital. I'm just curious.
No, yeah. I
Okay.
understand. Yes, ma'am.
Just curious. I just was wondering if we could just see what was happening there out of curiosity. Public safety, when I look at it and I see some of the other areas that you quoted here with public safety, I really don't know where the public safety directors sit in the county here, or even, I must admit, I don't know with Tampa, and I don't know how many people in our audience actually know. That would help me. And then the other thing that I really wanted to ask you to do
Yes,
is
ma'am.
this looked like a pretty big, it's a jump that you're kind of describing here. And if I'm right, what I have is the BOCC, and I know this repetitive of what I heard, but I want to make sure because I want to ask you a question. The BOCC, then the county administrator that's appointed or hired by the BOCC, then the deputy county administrator, and then the fire chief.
Correct.
Okay, and that fire chief that has some very significant things that might be great for the public safety, what you said, does not have access to going above their boss's head to do any presentation unless they're asked by the BOCC to come and present it.
That's correct.
Okay, and then, so for that reason, what the org chart look like in the county's fire department?
There's a chain of, there's the fire chief who has a deputy administrator, an administrative chief, an operations chief. There's also like an HR chief, finance, special operations. So there's layers as well. Which then goes down to shift commanders and then battalion chiefs, which is one of the ones I was at. I mean, there's several different layers in there. There's division chiefs, section chiefs, fire chiefs, that kind of thing.
And then I'm going to ask this question.
Yes,
Last
ma'am.
one. This is just a question
I'm not
to
going
ask.
anywhere.
I tried to write down what you were saying, but if one of the lower chiefs, let's say around that fourth level chief, has some things that could make the county safer, does that person have access?
To the fire chief?
Yeah.
Got to go to the shift commander.
Okay. I was just-
So I was a battalion chief. My
Okay.
chain of command, as Mr. Rush was saying, is that we go through a chain. You don't jump around to the fire chief. Now, if it was of significance, you know what I mean? If it was dire, it'd be a different story. But if it's just a suggestion or a presentation or something like that, I would have to go through the shift commander, who would then bring it to the operations chief, who would then bring it to the fire chief.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
But I would like, out of curiosity, if you just have that
Sure.
information. that
Mr.
would be
White,
great.
if we could move things
I
along,
know,
that'd be great.
Mr. Chair, the only other concern that I have, Mary Helen, would be the county administrator serve as the incident commander during a crisis, right? Everyone is in abeyance. The mayor of Plant City, the mayor of Tampa, the mayor of Temple Terrace. The only separate entity is the sheriff, right? Those two are the partners during a crisis. And so now, if you put the fire chief in a different spot, will that affect, and it's, I don't know, will that affect public safety? Because now this is a separate entity outside the existing structure of our emergency policy group. Just thinking out loud. And so there's just a whole lot of serious questions, and I don't know who's the expert. You know, maybe, who's the expert on this matter? Is it the county administrator? Is the fire chief himself to come before this charter board? So we hear your proposal, but I think before we make any kind of serious moves, we need to hear from some subject matter experts to answer our questions like you courageously come before this board today.
Yeah.
Other questions from
disagree.
board members? Mrs. Jarosh?
Yeah, this has been a great discussion, and I'm not sure where I land. You know, I do agree that when we dial 911 and there's a fire, we definitely want someone to be there. And I know that it has been significantly underfunded over the last few years. I think part of that is due to maybe the organization structure, because I did pull it up in the interim, and you have the BOCC, and you do have the county administrator, the auditor, and the city county attorney. And then under the county administrator, you have the deputy county administrator. But then you have financial, you have, you know, some other things all competing. It looks like under the deputy, you have many, many departments. What jumps out at me is obviously the fire chief, you know, has a lot. There's also, though, public works. I think roads, I could probably say roads and stormwater infrastructure, obviously after the hurricane, that's another big one. And I'm wondering if, however this goes, if an interim solution could be reorging and possibly moving the fire chief as a direct report to the county administrator, maybe Public Works as well. You know, just saying if it doesn't go your way, there might be some other ways so that they can kind of come to the top as far as priorities and, you know, in competing for the, you know, your time now as a county commissioner. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there.
I appreciate that.
I'm still
Thank
sitting
you.
on the fence. I think, you know, I
Well,
see the pros and cons here.
And I think each one of you brought up really valid points and, you know, discussion items, and whether Mr. White's questions or your comments as well, that they should be answered the best way possible. I'm not going to say I have all the answers. I don't know if one incident commander is competing with another. I think, you know, there may be an IC that has to make the ultimate decision. I've run incident command, so I understand. So, you know, it may be the county administrator making a final decision, but she's going to lean on the people who are around her, whether that's their emergency operations manager or director or the fire chief or the sheriff or whatever. So they're all working together. So there's not going to be competing interests for that. That doesn't mean that the structure doesn't need to be addressed, which I think is what you're kind of pointing out, that this should be certainly considered. But I appreciate that. All I'm asking is for your consideration. I think you got great questions. I'm happy to come back at a later date if you've chewed on it, noodled over it, as Ms. Latham would say. I'm happy to readdress those.
Let me, I've got a few questions myself, so
Oh,
let me go over it. I want to make sure I understand. On the comparable fire department page where you listed
Yes, sir.
comparable fire department, I know you listed counties larger than us and smaller than us. So there's no one where the fire chief reports directly to the elected county commission. Is that how I should read this?
Today, no.
There's none.
No.
Okay. I'm going to speak to you as been a Credian CEO, president for 36 years.
Yes, sir.
It troubles me that we take a department just because it's large and want to wrench it out from underneath the person that's supposed to be the executive for the county or the company and have it report directly to the board. What would you want to do if another group got to be 25% of budget, which is your argument for doing this? What would you, if another agency within the county got to be 25%, would you want to wrench them out from underneath the county administrator and also have them report directly to the Board of County Commissioners? Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's the argument for it. I think that's part of the conversation, is that it's one of the pieces that makes it important, is that public safety, we want to talk about how we have direct reports that have less, could have 20 employees. I think your department has 60 employees and maybe $10 million. Okay, if we use the county attorney's office, I don't know, something along those lines. Yeah. It's not so much whether it's big or small. It's kind of the impact of that particular department.
Okay.
I think so. That's the more important, way of looking at it.
And I know you well, so I appreciate your point of view on this. Again, speaking as a former executive, other people, if I was to interview somebody in another department, they're going to talk about why their department is really the most important department in the county.
Of course.
To a third person, I would get mine is the most important department. So listening to you here and then the call for response times, I mean, I myself won't agree with you, but thinking of it as an executive, I mean, Bonnie's the one, or the county administrator's got one that's got to juggle all these competitions. And sometimes they go in this department's favor, and sometimes they're in that department, sometimes they're in your department's favor, you know. So I'm just really reluctant to take to shatter the organization chart and have it report just straight to the BOCC and still charge Bonnie with responsibility for running the county, you know.
Well, and I think
But is there a compromise position? I mean, should the fire chief be reporting directly to the county administrator instead of through a layer? And if that is the case, is that a request the county commission can make, or is that something we have to issue as a resolution, or is it even a good idea? Yeah.
Well, I think Bonnie or the county administrator is always charged with balancing
Competing priorities.
competing priorities.
Yeah.
And it's easy for an elected person or anybody to blame it, well, let's say blame, but blame in a positive way
Yeah.
to point to say, well, they made the suggestion, sounds good, let's go with it. As opposed to having some skin in the game and going, well, it's a tough decision in doing it. Is there a compromise? I don't think the compromise, if there's a compromise of having, I think Mr. Roche talked about having the county administrator be the point of contact in the interim or something to that effect, or reorging in that way. Could that help? Quite possibly. But I don't know. I mean, again, it's still a layer of filter
But
for
again, that
public
back and
safety
forth,
policy.
I understand what you're saying with that back and forth scenario. So it seemed to me that the fire chief reporting directly to Bonnie is going to eliminate some of those issues in a major sort of way and not fracture the organization chart. But I don't know who, and I don't know why Bonnie has it set up that way where it's reporting to someone under her. I don't know if that's because in her estimation, there's other priorities that are really just as important and she's trying to spread them out or what? I don't grasp it, yeah.
I'd say only she'd be able to
Only
answer
she'd be
that.
able to- I know.
I'm not trying to avoid your,
I wondered if she'd
question.
be here, but I didn't ask her directly.
no. And I don't think it would be, yeah.
And she's in an appointed position, so I'm not going to put her where she's going to say, I don't like a certain commissioner's idea. I got to be a realist about it, you know.
I
so.
think she feels strongly that that we agree on some things and disagree on some other things regarding this particular issue. I think
Yeah.
she sees that there's some value, but at the same time, I believe that she also, as you describe, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, balancing the priorities in that sometimes if it was left up to the seven of us, we might say, well, fire and police gets it all, roads, forget everything else.
Yeah.
And so having someone else in there going, hey, don't forget, whispering in your ear, sort of, that they got to remember these things.
Yeah.
I think that's where she feels that there's value in having that little bit of a buffer there.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm going to try to
Last
include, so
one,
we'll
you
throw
know,
Mr. White in
You
here,
know,
please.
the county administrator is the county administrator, and so really, they are the experts, her entire staff, everyone in the county works for the county administrator. And so really, if I had to call for anything, I would be calling for a recommendation from the county administrator of Hillsborough County on this issue. And then that way, all the facts, based on his document and based on what's really going on out there in the field, can be brought forward to this board in some sort of document.
Okay.
And so I know you're saying you don't want to put the administrator on the spot, but that's who has all the information. And so we're being asked by the elected official to consider this and possibly put it on the ballot. And so we need a professional recommendation, whether for it or against it or whatever, from the county administrator of Hillsborough County, Bonnie Wise. And so that's
Okay.
what I'm calling for.
Okay. Did you want to say something? Oh, okay. Ms. Snively?
Oh, thank you. Well, if we're going to do that, then I think we also would want an argument from the current fire chief, to be fair, right? Because no one in a power of authority necessarily would like to relinquish that to another organization of people necessarily. So if we're going to ask Ms. Wise to submit something that, for or against that, then I believe that we should also ask the current fire chief for that information as well, because that, I would consider the current fire chief also an expert in this particular area, and I'd be very curious as to, what the fire chief's opinion or stance would be on something of this nature.
And I would just
Ms.
like to
Yeah,
close
Dr.
out
Collins?
whatever comes back, because this has been very, very interesting, thank you. We've been looking forward to a discussion of this type, and it was interesting listening to everyone's point of views, but what I really would like to see is the pros and cons. I don't want to see one person just say all the way, let's do it, and I don't want to hear one person say, don't do it. If it's coming back to us to make a decision to put on the ballot for the people, if we decide to adopt it, it would certainly be helpful to me to see the sincere pros and cons and have them almost comparable. So we're looking at apples to apples as we look cross and see how it would benefit us and how it would not. And it doesn't matter to me who all sent it to me. I'll take it from everybody that want to write it up, but give me pros and cons.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we invite the county administrator and the fire chief back to have a discussion on this. I believe this is one of the important issues that we have, especially with the information that we're beginning, that response times are slipping, our buildings are slipping. I mean, the purpose of county government is to provide these vital services first, not stuff, vital services. And we have been given an indication that there may be a problem with our vital services, the thing that our government is supposed to be providing first. And this is our opportunity. This is our opportunity to really make an impact and to have a change and to do what's right for the people. So my motion is to have the county administrator and the fire chief come back and make their presentations on this matter.
Mr. Droege?
Before we consider that motion, I have a question for you.
Well, now I need to know if the motion has a second. Is there anyone willing to second that motion? Okay, the second is by Mrs. Jarosh. Now, go ahead, Ms. Droege.
Okay, so I can see having the county administrator here. What I'm trying to understand is having Chief Doherty here when he actually reports to the deputy. So I'm trying to understand chain of command issues that this may or may not present if we make this request. I'm looking at your face, so I know there's something there. And so before, that's why I wanted to discuss this before there was a motion put forward, because this is a real thing.
Yes. I think having the county administrator here would be appropriate. I think while I understand you view the fire chief as a subject matter expert, no more than I am. I served 28 years as a firefighter for Hillsborough County my entire career. I have, again, worked under 5 fire chiefs and 4 different county administrators. And I've been involved with the politics of our county since 1998. I'm intimately involved and aware of some of the ebbs and flows, if you will. But having an employee come here who's has the possibility of disappointing me or his boss by what he may or may not say, I think wouldn't be appropriate.
So I would amend my motion then, but before I amend my motion, I would ask you who would be the person you would suggest, because Ms. Snively has a very important point. This needs to be a debate and not a one-sided presentation.
Yes, I get that. And I think if the county administrator comes, and she should be able to provide the information that you guys need. She can she can get that information from the fire chief, but him coming here and doing that, I think would be inappropriate.
Mr. Taylor, are you speaking to this matter?
Yes.
Okay.
I would also say it's, it's important to understand our county administrator, if she were to come, it is for information. I think it would be inappropriate to put her on the spot to say, give us should we do this, should we not? I mean, she inherited this structure.
This organization structure.
Yep,
Yeah.
and through her, wisdom and diligence has designed it the way that it is. So I get we're trying to get information so we can, be as informed as possible, but to, expect Ms. Wise to be the opponent or proponent, on this, I would say is not appropriate. Because again, she's she is tasked to administer the will of our 7 elected currently. Yeah, so I'm a little
I will say
reluctant.
this, Mr. Taylor, I will say this, regardless of what she says, I absolutely respect her opinion, and if she was an opponent, she's not going to draw my ire.
Oh, and
At
I'm with
all.
you, and you know I'm with you 1,000%, personally and professionally, totally. I just don't want her to come in, you know, us being like, all right, give us, you know.
So
Yeah.
let me
And
amend.
so I think it's important when she comes, it is
Right.
it is information. She is providing information, and then we take that, compute it, noodle on it, and then come to, you know, our individual conclusion. So I do think it's important to put that out there.
So I will amend my motion to just bring the county administrator in, but I do want to sort of clarify. I'm not thinking this is going to be some kind of college debate, obviously.
Right.
What we're looking for is information from both perspectives, not an argument, but a perspective presentation. And I think at this time it is wise to just go with the county administrator, but I really don't know why a county administrator would be threatened by the police chief or by the fire chief giving
it's
his
the other way around.
perspective on it. Or the fire chief being intimidated to
Well.
give his perspective on the challenges of his job. But we're being real and we're people, so I see Mr. Taylor's perspective, and I would
So you're amending
amend,
the motion that'll, just inviting the county administrator?
just to invite the county
And
administrator.
who was the second? And
Yeah.
do you agree
I was-
to modify it?
I will, and I do have a comment.
Okay, go ahead, make your comment.
Yeah, no, I think that's a prudent thing to do, and I do believe that there are both sides would be presented, because I think Commissioner Bowles gave his side of the pro side, and not saying that she's coming to give the con side, but basically to help answer some of our questions. One of mine might be, does she have the ability to I believe as administrator, she does have the ability to make that change, to maybe move the position of the fire chief and possibly Public Works to.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's what I would like. And I don't think we need the fire chief here, because we had an excellent presentation by the commissioner.
Well, thank you.
And yes, ma'am, Dr. Collins?
Yeah, I don't want to put staff on the spot. I don't want to put elected officials on the spot or
Put me on the
anything.
spot. I'm here.
Okay, you did it. You came.
Yes, ma'am.
But what I'm really looking for is not an attack on the issue. I'm
Yes.
looking for information on
Right,
the issue.
right.
And I don't particularly need the county administrator to be here to give it. She might want to send a deputy. I don't care who comes if they send the information, and maybe that would keep it safer. We're not in the motion or in the decision as a board or whatever we are. We're telling them what to send us. We're asking for information, and I don't want to put the administrator, the county administrator, on the spot that you the one got to bring this information. She might decide to send the police chief and say, you know, this would be good for you to present it. I don't think so, but I just want information.
So where does that leave us?
And I'm to a point where I don't know if I could support the motion if we just
Do you want to-
definitively tell them
Do you
what
want
to
to
do.
redefine your motion any, or leave it as it is? Leave it as it, invite the county administrator to come to speak on the matter. But it's a matter of perspectives, not arguing, yeah. Is there any further discussion? I'm going to try a voice vote, if I can get the voice vote on this rather than a roll call, because I think it's going to sway one way or another, pretty sway. So any further discussion of this motion? We're going to carry this issue, bring the county administrator back for a perspective. No further discussion?
One more
Okay.
thing to add, and because I think we need to be very specific as to what we're asking the county administrator to do. We can't just say, we'd like to invite you to this meeting to give us your perspective. I think we really want to dig in and say, we need to understand the pros and the cons of this, and we need the factual information that supports both pros and cons. And whether I don't know whether we want her opinion on it, whether we want her to give us her stance on it or not, but I think whatever we decide to do, it just needs to be extremely specific into what we're asking her so that nobody is wasting anybody's time in presenting information.
I have one comment.
Go
Can
ahead,
it be
Ed.
her designee? Because she may want her own person to do that. I think it should be her designee, not a command for her to come. Oh, did you? Okay, okay. Well, I understand, but I want to make it clear in the motion as well.
I don't have a problem with that because you could also have a scheduling conflict, and we
Okay.
don't want to delay this. But
Okay.
whatever information comes, I agree with Ms. Snively that it needs to be direct. We need to know specifically on this issue. She needs to know what's coming, and they need to be prepared appropriately.
Yeah. So you're okay with the county administrator or her designee?
Yes, I am.
That's
if
part of
Mr.
the motion
Roach is-
then? Okay.
Or can we be okay with sending it to the county administrator and soliciting this kind of information?
Yes.
And that way, we're not saying we're sending it to her for her to come or her to send someone. We just want the information.
Well, I would rather
Well-
have somebody here we could ask questions to.
I think we want a real person here, but it
Well, I
could
want a
be,
real person.
could be the
but I
county
don't wanna
administrator or her
dictate. Okay.
designee.
I think the
Just
motion
vote
gets us
against
there. I think it gets
And then
us there.
I'm sure she'll be watching this recording and hearing what you just asked for.
She probably will not be
Mr.
watching
Taylor,
this.
anything
I
on,
hope not. I hope not.
any further discussion of the motion, Mr. Taylor? Did you have, your light is on, so I was going off of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
mine is.
All right, well, I'll call for the vote. We understand the motion? County administrator designee coming to talk on this. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, like sign? Okay, clerk, would you do a roll call, please, so we can get the yes and no's, please?
Wood?
No.
Carlton? No. Collins?
No.
Drogi?
No.
Hall? Yes. Holt?
Uh,
Geroch?
Yes.
Joden? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Coons?
Absent. Absent.
Latham?
No.
Shaw?
No.
Snively?
Yes.
Taylor? I'm sorry?
No.
White?
Yes.
Motion carried, motion failed, 5-8. Chair Wood, Carlton, Collins, Drogi, Latham, Shaw, and Taylor voted no.
All right, how would you like to proceed in lieu of that not being an option? Yeah. Any suggestions? Okay, I'm going to make one, but go ahead.
Well, based on the information we've been given and our ability to do our own research, we could probably come up with our own pros and cons. I think that's a really great way of making decisions as a group as to whether or not we move forward with this initiative. So maybe at our next meeting, I don't know if this would be a separate, we've talked about workshops in the past, if this would be a separate workshop, but, or we just go back and do our own homework and say, I'm just going to make my own list of pros and cons, and then come to the next meeting and we, discuss it further then. But I do think that we need to have some time to absorb a lot of this information. We appreciate the information you brought to us. It's been very, very helpful. And I'm sure there's other information out there that we just need to collect and think about before we move forward or not.
I'll recognize Mr. White.
Yeah, if we're not going to have an expert from the county administrator's office come, I think we need to remove it from the table from consideration. So I'd like to make a motion that we remove this issue for any additional consideration.
State the motion again, sir.
I like the issue that's brought to have the fire chief report to the Board of County Commissioners removed from our agenda for additional considerations. We're not going to get expert opinions on it and talk. And so that's my motion. Just take it. We're done with it.
We're done with it.
Yes, sir. That's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion that we're going to be basically done with this item. Is there a second for Mr. White's motion?
I'll second it to get a vote.
Okay, Dr. Collins has seconded the motion. Any discussion of the motion? All right, we'll call.
I'm sorry, I would just like to say that I actually understand what Mr. White is saying. If we are not going to have an educated input on this matter, for whatever reason I don't understand, I mean, it's going to be a whole lot more expedient to have her come and actually speak to us than for us to go back and do our own homework and discuss it later. That being said, I'm just going to say I understand where he's coming from that, and it leaves me a
Okay.
little bit puzzled otherwise.
Any further discussion of the motion? It's a motion basically to drop the matter. No further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote, please. The motion is to dispense with the item. We're done.
Correct.
Wood,
Yes.
Carlton? Yes. Collins?
Yes.
Drogi,
Yes.
Hall,
I would say no, because I believe this is a very important issue that we do need to address. I do not agree with how we're moving forward with it, but I do not believe that it's worthy of withdrawal.
Droge,
It's a yes or no?
Yes, and possibly adding a resolution.
That's
Joden,
fine.
Latham,
No.
Shaw? No. Snively,
No.
Taylor?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-5. Hall, Latham, Shaw, and Snively voted no.
Thank you. You alluded to a resolution. Would you like to bring that up now, or can we be done with this?
Well, I agree, this is a very important issue. I'm thinking that there are ways to mitigate that. So maybe it doesn't need a resolution, as I mentioned, if the county administrator could potentially look at revamping how they have their departments organized under the deputy, because financial has their own department, direct report, from what I understand, to the county administrator. Communications has a
Okay,
direct report.
so specifically, what action would you like this body to take?
My resolution, and maybe I need to develop it a little further, would be to have the county administrator review potential organization changes such that public safety, such as the fire chief, and I believe Public Works, you know, if your roads aren't fixed, your response times are going to be really bad.
Yeah.
So I think Public Works and Fire Chief could be direct reports to the county administrator. So I don't know if that's something we can put in a resolution as a interim step.
Sure, we could put that into a resolution.
Yeah, because it gets them one step closer to the BOCC. I know it's not direct report, and I totally agree with what you were saying about the executive.
Yeah.
So I'm going to withdraw that resolution.
Okay.
Because I think maybe if the county administrator watches this and sees, you know, coverage, she'll.
On this issue?
Yes, I have a question for you, Chris, or Commissioner Bowles.
Yes, ma'am.
Could conceivably the BOCC ask to have the fire chief report to them?
Conceivably, yeah. We make policy.
But then you have the same chain of command, Ms. Drogi, problem that we were talking about before. The county commission
Right.
asking an employee to override their boss.
No, that is not what I asked. You didn't listen. I asked if the Board of County Commissioners could resolve amongst themselves to request that the fire chief, the fire rescue, we keep, you know, it's Hillsborough County Fire Rescue, report directly to them instead of the county administrator.
Wouldn't that be?
How about, I'll let the lawyer answer.
Yeah,
that.
it's a valid question.
Yeah.
Right, but I think you would have a problem with the charter separation of powers, because the charter specifically says the adoption of the administrative code and the advice consent for the deputy county administrators is the only two places that are an exception, that the legislative stays legislative and the executive stays executive. Now, they can say, we would really like it, you know, but they can't require it.
Commissioner Bowles, would you like to talk to us, your feelings about districts?
Real briefly, yes,
Would you?
because we have a really good a good presentation coming up. I think everyone here, and I appreciate the conversation, by the way, and I'm not disappointing anybody. Thank you all for everything you've talked about. I think one of the critical things that we need to do and consider as our population continues to grow and our density continues to grow and our problems continue to grow, that we remain responsive and continue to engage the constituents out there. As a countywide commissioner, I've been on 674 dealing with things at Kings Point and had to go the same day out to West Chase. And it's just the way things happen. We just have 1,200 square miles. I know that they're going to bring up some information for you all with the demographics of our county. But I think that given the size of our county, our current population, our population density, which I can see it there, Mr. White's, you can see where I've done some of the graphs there along with that we need to consider whatever the makeup is. I presented 9 single districts. Do I know if that's the final solution? That's just a presentation that I'm coming up with. Mr. Schiff back here presented another scenario that maybe could be considered as well. I've heard in the last meetings that you all have, there's been some other iterations of that. Regardless of that, I think what's important is to think about that as we approach that 1.6 million, that our county has more constituents or more people than 11 different states in the country. Our budget is larger than some countries' budgets in the world. So, you know, when we look at trying to be responsive, to be accountable, I think that what we need to do is that we need to consider how, at the very least, what the state was even thinking about doing. You know, if you recall, House Bill 1265 was going through committee and it died. But that was to split it up even to where there would be even more than what I'm suggesting. And that's based on population. And I think that Dr. Collins and I think Mr. White had talked about in the past about definitely if we're going to do it, it needs to be based on population and how we're looking at things. So it's not necessarily just, you know, just something that's arbitrary. And if we look at the districts for county commissions right now, I got these numbers, I couldn't remember these numbers. And this is from the 2020 census, so it's a little out of date. So let's just assume that it's a lot more than what it is in here. But District 1 had 358,000. District 2 had 358,800. District 3 had 357,300. And District 4 had 385,200. When you start looking at that and you start thinking about, you know, the resident population in Florida has increased, you know, during the 2010 to 2020 by 3 million. We're increasing by another couple 100,000 that's estimated to be probably. This guy's going to come up with some better answers than I am, better numbers at least. What's that? You're doing well. I'm doing well. He says I'm doing good. You know, the average number of people in the 120 state house districts we have is half of what our commissioners are. And that's the single member districts. That's between 156 to 179,000 people. So the people that are in Tallahassee that somehow manage to work together and think about the best of what's housed for Hillsborough counties. If you think about, we're talking about how we need to have people who are working together to think about everybody. So we have Alvarez, Owen, Pittman, and the like. If I talk about the Republicans, that somehow work together with Driscoll and Roussan and Rayner, exactly. The point is that they're all single members. They all represent segments of the community, but they all come together for delegations that get things done for our community. So does it have to be a countywide? I understand why maybe it was done in the beginning. You know, there was a little bit of shenanigans going on back in the 80s there and whatnot, so they needed a little oversight. I think we've gone beyond that, and certainly our demographics have changed. So, again, I think that from what I've heard in the past, a lot of you are pretty well versed on this subject, so I'm not going to belabor it. And to say that I'm in favor of change, absolutely. I could be legislating myself out of a job, but I think that's the right thing to do. So I'm okay with that if that's what you all decide to do. But I think that we do need to consider this given how we continue to grow, and that speaking in my 7 months as a commissioner, how difficult it is to really take care of, and I try my best, and I think we do a pretty damn good job of it, but being representative of 1.5 million people is pretty hard with myself and 2 staff members. I think Commissioner Miller can attest to that, and she is a single member district, and she has, according to this, 385,000, 440,000 in her district, and it's continuing to grow. So I think that this is something that, if there's something to think about, this is one of those things that we definitely need to think about, and definitely needs to come out of this board that addresses that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Stay there. Mr. Taylor?
Are you good with questions?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I agree with you. We are a large county. We are a very large county, and I do think, personally, we need more representation. You know, in looking at the makeup of, you know, the 5 biggest counties, they're all single member, or they have a county mayor component. I appreciate you talking about our friends in Tallahassee, our state house members. They represent, what, 180,000 per seat. What I'm trying to figure out is, I understand why, you know, the 4-3 makeup. I love that as a voter, I said it last time, I get to vote for the majority of my county commissioners. I think it's a good thing. I don't think our county, the size of it, and the growth we are continuing to see allows for that. And so what I'm battling with is we consider, okay, let's say we do raise that number to 9, but now we're trying to figure out, is it 9 single member? Is it 7-2, 5-4? My question for you, and another commissioner sitting back there, if she would like to opine, but she doesn't have to, by all means, what value do you see an at-large commissioner having? And I truly am trying to figure that out, you know, so I would love to hear.
I have an answer.
Good. I would love to hear it, and as a former staff, having to take those calls and put in that this person's trash or this gentleman needs their, you know, CO, you know, on a Friday at 4:59 p.m.
Right.
We're a large county, and it's hard to keep up with it. So I would love to, again,
I think
thoughts.
so. Having I think there's 2 pluses, and I think Mr. Schiff pointed, I would kind of hit on this a little bit. Shared vision, so that the shared vision, there could be one that looks at the bigger picture, and that it doesn't just focus in on my people up in Lutz, or my people in Progress Village, or my people in Plant City, wherever that is, you know, whatever that group of people that I'm representing. But it looks at that shared vision that we can kind of look at, or what are we doing that we can look at holistically across the board. I think the other advantage, and that I've come to, is that while I can deal with issues, I feel like I'm okay going to Sun City to talk at Kings Point, because not that she wouldn't or she can't, or maybe she can't, but that it's kind of like a bit of a safety net for some of the single member districts, that there's somebody else out there that can answer a call for them when, you know, that can address an issue. So, and I've done that, whether it's been there or Commissioner Meyer's district. I've kind of peppered myself around a little bit, and because, you know, not all problems happen in one area. So to that point, I think that we have having that ability is important. But what the balance should be, I don't know. Again, I think if I'm in Lutz, that's I live up in that area. So if I'm in that area and I get a call from Miss Droege, who lives in Kings Point and Sun City, is it okay for me to go down there and mess around in that area? Well, no. Unless I said, hey, and it was just happened to be Commissioner Miller's district, say, is it okay if I go down there and talk to her? You know, now they kind of a chain of command thing, right? You don't want to mess around in someone else's backyard. But as the county-wide, you kind of have that, I'll call it a bit of a luxury that, what are they going to say? Well, I'm elected by everybody, not just the 440,000. I'm elected by 1.5 million, you know, technically. That's who I'm representing. So there's value to it, but I think you point out that we're at a point that I think that we effectively being able to do our job is difficult, very difficult. And I want to make sure that if you call or if Mr. White called or, you know, whomever, or Ms. Droege, that if I'm able to get to him, Mr. Coleman back here, who spoke earlier, I've dealt with him in trying to address his issues. And I think he's in my district, but he's not in my district, if you know what I mean. So the point is that I like addressing that, and I think that having that freedom is great, although I think we need more.
Commissioner Miller, would you like to add some comments? Thanks for being here, by the way.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. For those of you that have not met me before, I'm Commissioner Miller. I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, and I wanted to start out by saying thank you for being here. I got completely caught up on all your meetings over the last few days, and I appreciate the hard work that you're putting in and your decisions. I do have a lot to say, actually, about the fire chief, and I'll probably get on the calendar at some point in the next few months just to give my opinion, maybe not for this year, but in 5 years when it'd be taken up again. But on this particular topic, I do have a lot of interest in it, and I want to encourage you. I think this would be a good topic for a workshop, as we were just going over. So I'm super data-driven. So I would be asking questions like, I will tell you that I think, I don't want to speak off the cuff, but the last time I checked, I had over 40% of the open tickets in the county in my district alone. So it's not just about single-member districts and everything. I think you need to look at the data of what we're serving, and the jobs look different. So one of the things that we do is constituent services. Well, I have the fastest growing district. I have one of the largest growing, one of the largest districts. We just are simply inundated with work. And even if somebody happens to pick up the phone, what do you think they do? They scroll and they go, oh, I live in District 4, they call my district. If they happen to call one of the countywides, that open ticket that is technically in Chris's district, I'm still doing the work on it and doing the follow-up on it. So I think that I would encourage you all to look at the data and say, what does that look like? Because to Commissioner Bowles' point about we can all work together. I mean, it's happening across the state and making decisions for our constituents and being able to come together. So I don't know if that's, I still haven't made up my mind because I'm looking for the data on whether it should be, 7 or 9 single-member districts, or if there should be some at-large in there. I will just tell you there are pros and cons. Commissioner Bowles and Commissioner Whistle is very well known for being able to work on projects because they don't have the same level of constituent calls coming in. So there are pros and cons, and I encourage you all to look at all of that information before you make a decision on what you think you want that to look like moving forward. But I will tell you that I had no idea. I had a full-time job before. We work really, really hard for the people, and I just think it's the sheer massive numbers of the calls coming into our offices and the amount of work that has to be done in this county and how fast we're growing as a community. So again, thank you for everything you do. I will come back in a more professional on your calendar and address you all if you would like that. But I'm happy to take some questions as well.
Mr. White?
Commissioner, thank you for coming.
Yes.
I guess my rooted question I've always asked this over the years is related to the elected county chair. If the Charter Review Board were to vote out single-member districts, I've always been an advocate that we should have an elected county chair if you're going to have all single-member districts. Have you given that any thought?
So do you mean like they're elected by the people?
Elected county chair, some would call it a county mayor.
No, I would
But
not
you
be in
wouldn't
support.
call it- you
As a
wouldn't call
knee-jerk,
it-
again, I haven't done my own research on it, but
But
as
Orange
a,
County, who has the elected county chair? Who's that? Orange County. You know. I'm just that's.
I would not be in support of a county mayor. We're a strong, the way we're, it's a lie now, it works very well.
Okay,
Meaning
I want
we
to
elect
try to
our
stay
chair.
on the demographic issue, so go ahead, quick.
So Chris, I would like to thank you very much for including all the compensation data, as well as the other demographic that was in this package.
I heard that at a previous meeting. So just to put this in perspective, or wherever, the information, that is at the maximum. That's the maximum that someone could make as an aide with benefits.
Yeah.
I did not
And-
make,
So
I did
I
not
want
make
that to
that
be
as an
absolutely
aide.
clear.
I will just let y'all know that.
What's
Pardon
that?
I did not make that as an aide. I was well compensated,
Well,
but it was not that number.
regardless of what the number is,
But
if
I
we,
want you to,
if we add county commissioners, regardless of whether they're at-large or dedicated to a district, there will be expense. There will be expense of adding them, the salary, the benefits, the aides, their benefits, and then there's, whether or not we can accommodate them. I've heard this circulating office space in county center.
I can tell you, Ms. Droege, we are going to, that's going to be on the agenda for next month on this. That's how we're splitting this topic up. Yeah. Tonight is the demographic data, next month is the cost data.
Are we done for tonight? Is that
No.
what you're telling me? Okay.
No, but we're done with that cost topic. It's going to be on next month's agenda.
Okay. Well, regardless, I've gone on record, I think, in previous meetings that there's no question District 4 is way too large. It needs, the having to cover from one county line to the next county line, and the variety of residents that are represented in that district, their needs are so different, depending on whether you're talking about East County, and I mean far East County, rural, versus some of the more urban areas. The other thing that I get nervous about right now when I look at this demographic data is right now, and this has been documented from several sources nationally, we are losing population right now because we cannot solve some basic problems of home insurance, affordability, car insurance, et cetera, congestion, et cetera. So we are actually losing population right now. And the people that are here can't get out even if they want to because the real estate market's dead. So I feel a little bit, I don't know if I want to depend on this growth data, given the current situation. So that's another demographic issue that I have with these projections. But I will say once again, District 4 is too big and needs to be split somehow.
Okay,
so-
thank you.
I just-
Quickly.
I just want to
and
ask
quick.
really quickly, in your opinion, will 9 do the trick? I mean, we're a representative government, and that's what we have to look at. We are not a democracy or a representative government, which means we have to have enough representatives to actually represent the people. If we don't have enough representatives to represent the people, then we're not doing our job. And so my first question is, will 9 make a difference? Is it going to help?
Would you like to contemplate that and bring that back for a presentation later?
I can give you a knee-jerk response. I think
Okay.
that
No,
going,
no, I'm
well, I
okay
think
if you
going
come
back
back
to,
later,
I
but-
think that this is really representative of the heavy lifting, that the incredible
Right.
ask that us as commissioners, when we hand-selected you all to serve on this board, this is the heavy work that we're asking you to do. And so I think that that's why I have been tuning into the actual discussions that you've been having, is because it's ultimately going to come before us and I have to make a decision on it. I do think it would, to Ms. Droge's point, for me to drive across my own district, to get from, say, where I live in East County to, Sun City Center, often takes me, I have to allot an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half to confirm that I'm going to get to my appointment on time. It's a very massive, large district. And then you talk about the countywides, they often talk about a commitment. They might only get 2 meetings in a day just due to travel time because of the sheer size and congestion in the county. And is that the best representation of the people? I don't think so. Me driving in my car, and of course I end up multitasking and trying to do everything. It's a lot. I think any increase would be a lot. I was not a huge fan of the massive numbers of the bill that was in Tallahassee. It was, based on population, and it would have brought us to like 15. know how you stay in the
No.
sunshine and manage 15, knowing logistically how we get information to us before a board meeting. So I think that you all doing the really heavy lifting and doing the research is going to help us make that decision, whether that answer is 9 or 11. Definitely needs to be an odd number, but that's my
Then
knee-jerk response.
My final question is this, very quickly. Countywide commissioners. In my perspective is, and I'm willing to accept something else or to hear opposition or alternatives. A commissioner that represents the whole county literally represents nobody, which means that in the end, the largest county gets more representation because they've got the loudest voice. And so I just want to know, I mean, you know, our county-wides, maybe they're above the mark and they work really hard and they try to distribute themselves equally. But the reality is when you represent the entire county, you can't represent anyone. You have to go where the loudest need is. And that means the people, the county with the biggest districts still get a bigger voice than the counties that have no representation.
Absolutely, and I have to say, like, I just worked on a case, and it was a pretty intense one. It was for a farmer rancher, and that's because, again, that's an area that I have an expertise in that wasn't in my district. You know, that district commissioner still looked to me to help this farmer because I had an expertise in the area. We're still going to cross over and work. I think that it's short-sighted to think that we're only going to stay in our districts and just represent those people. We're still going to be representing and making decisions for the county as a whole.
Chris, want to say something, then we're going to try to get last two questions
Yeah,
to Mrs. Snively and Mr. White.
So to your question, would 9 do it? 9 would give us 177,000 at 1.6 million, which would be right at the top end of the State House district. So I think that would be a closer number. You know, so that's based on that number. That's kind of where I came up with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mrs. Snively?
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
thank you. So we're back, we're still talking about single-member districts, and the numbers, the math, for 7, if you're doing single-member districts, would go from about 400,000 constituents, of course, some have more than that, to about 225,000, right? And so that in itself, before we even talk about adding 2 more members and the cost of adding 2 more members, will almost instantly create an easier constituency for each commissioner to be able to serve.
Yes.
And just kind of speaking in, I'm not sure if we're looking for a
I'm anxious
motion
to get the
tonight.
county to talk, so
Okay, so I'm just going to give you my quick perspective coming from.
can you do it in 30 seconds?
I'll try. I wrote it down, so I'll read it quickly.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to just speak briefly, coming from someone who I was a single-member
I
district
know.
representative
I
for 8
know.
years in the same, pretty much almost exactly the same district as Commissioner Miller.
You
So-
didn't have to
so
your
I
30
get-
seconds already.
So, thanks. Man, it's brutal. I feel like I'm on the school board again. So just kind of want to,
I love
benefits
you,
and
you know that.
trade-offs of single-member. Okay, so single-member districts obviously offer a direct form of representation, a more direct form of representation when each commissioner is elected by voters within a specific geographic area. It creates a clearer line of accountability, and constituents know exactly who to call and who represents their neighborhood and who's responsible for addressing their local concerns. In turn, commissioners may feel a stronger obligation to respond to the priorities of the people they serve directly, because those are the voters who elect them. And as you said, the state has figured out how to do it, and so we could too. It also encourages a more diverse representation. Communities that might be underrepresented in a county-wide vote have a stronger voice when they can elect someone who understands their needs and lives among them. That said, there are trade-offs. One concern with single-member districts is that commissioners, unless serving in a high-functioning capacity, which we do have a board of commissioners who are higher functioning, may become too focused on their district's interests rather than working together for the good of the entire county. And it also opens the doors to issues like gerrymandering that's been mentioned before, uneven resource allocation if not carefully self-managed. But overall, I think that this model of a single-member district promotes greater transparency, responsiveness, trust between elected officials and people they serve. It's about making sure every voice counts. It's about making sure every neighborhood has a seat at the table. And so I am definitely a proponent for single-member districts to help out the countywide folks be able to represent their people in their area, and also the single-member districts to be able to reduce the amount of constituents that they have to be able to serve them more effectively. I'm so sorry that was not 30 seconds.
Well, that was very insightful. Thank you very much. Mr. White?
Yes, first, the public, I want you to make sure you tune into this. We're very fortunate to have 2 elected county commissioners here before the Charter Review Board. And what's important to me is the African-American population in Hillsborough County. And I just want to know for the record, or do you believe in that principle that historically the black folks have been able to have a representative of their choice on the Board of County Commissioners? And over the years, there has been several opportunities for the Hispanic citizens of this Hillsborough County to have a representative of their choice. Do you believe in something like that to continue as we move toward pushing possibly to 9 county commissioners? And I'd like both commissioners to respond.
Yes, I believe in diversity on the board, absolutely, and fair representation across our county.
Okay.
I mean, simply put, yes.
I'm not so sure I understand the question specifically, but I represent all constituents regardless of color or race. So I'm not sure that I would want to separate.
Commissioner, just to let you understand, Mr. Chair, real quick. So Hillsborough County historically was a pre-clearance county under federal law, Section 7? 5. Section 5. I'm sorry, I'm not an attorney. Well, anyway, they had to have a majority-minority district, and we have that today. And so we're moving to possibly the 9 commissioners. I just want to know, as elected officials, can you support continuing something, what we have that still exists, and we move forward with additional seats, having a majority?
Yes, absolutely. And as I stand today, I'm still leaning towards leaving it at 7 because of the additional costs involved. In other words, you're talking about construction costs, you're talking about staffing costs, you're talking about commissioner wages costs, driver's costs, expenses for travel. I mean, it's not a single number. So I think I'm very conscientious about budgets. If anybody knows me, I'm a fiscal conservative. I think you all need to take a look at that as well. So I'm leaning towards 7 single-member districts if I were voting on it today.
Thank you.
And keeping the specific district that you're talking about, yes. And I think that would be not fall on me. It falls on the people that design the
Majority-minority district. elected.
majority-minority district, yes. But with that, couldn't that also be a Hispanic majority-minority district?
We'd like to have both.
Okay, but it
Let's give our 2 commissioners a
African-American
round of
and
applause for
Hispanic.
being here. Sir?
Thank you all very much.
I see somebody back. Thank you. Did you come forward? I warmed it up for you. Well, I'm going to ask this group to make a decision. We try to end at 8 o'clock. Can you stay for this presentation, or would you like it done on our next meeting date? How long would the presentation last?
We can be pretty quick, yeah.
Like
Since
under
you
10
have-
minutes?
Yes, since you have the materials in advance, yeah, we'll go through it. pretty quickly.
Would you mind staying 10 minutes?
I recommend finishing this and anything else on the schedule, we,
That's what I was
we
thinking.
remand to the next meeting.
Presentation, are they going to allow 20 minutes of questions and discussion and whatnot?
Well, tell me how much time you will.
No, I'm asking the chair. If we just have the
If we do a
presentation,
10-minute presentation, can we have 5 minutes of questions? Is that agreed upon? 10 minutes and 5?
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to,
And I'll manage the time?
Okay, we'll be
I
real quick.
believe Ms. Sornita is going to be very efficient.
I've got to watch with a timer on it here.
Okay, well, just by introduction, Melissa Zornita, Hillsborough County City County Planning Commission. Thank you for having us here again today. I'm going to turn the presentation immediately over to our Demographic and Economics Manager, Yasser Gonzalez.
Yes, indeed. Good evening. This is Yasser Gonzalez, Planning Commission staff. So let's start contextualizing this issue, this demographic issue. As Commissioner Bowles said earlier, we are the third most populous county in the state. We also have the fourth largest economy in the state, and that will be at $116 billion. So that is a statewide context. Now, on a county level, let's look at what's been happening, per your last meeting, what's been happening to the county in terms of growth. And we heard earlier that county is not growing, but we go by what the numbers are saying. And the numbers are pretty healthy numbers. Again, 1.56, 6% higher than back in 2020. And by 2030, that number will be 12% higher population-wise, 1.75 million people. This is just like a graph of the previous chart. And again, you have had this information for a week. We are going to be, through 2030, expecting to grow faster, both population and jobs. Population and housing units grow faster, jobs just a little slower, but we're expecting growth everywhere. And we are required to plan for the forecast of the growth that comes out of the University of Florida. So again, if the forecast changes, we will adjust our planning as well. Through 2050, the county, again, just giving you a bigger perspective, we're looking at 2 million people, 1.4 million jobs, and again, healthy growth we're seeing throughout. And this is just a chart and saying we, in the Tampa Bay region, 8 counties, Citrus to Sarasota, Pinellas to Polk County, we are going to be attracting the largest number of people and the largest number of jobs. So we did statewide context, countywide context. Now we're going to commission district level context. And at the commission district, there are various figures rolling around. We're looking at District 4, 419,000, and that is a 2024 numbers. Again, Commission District 4 has seen the largest growth since 2020 at 11%. That is double or triple what every other commission district has grown. It is the largest, again, at 419,000, and District 2 is the least populous district. The range, this is a very debated concept. What is the range? You take the most populous minus the least populous and divide that difference by the average, and that's taking 13%. How does that compare to the last time they reapportioned at 7.7%? And the target range per the historical and per some of the legislation is 10%. Anything above that will trigger potential challenges in the courts. So again, it is in red there. You may have had it in color in your presentation. We're not casting any kind of judgment. It's just the way it is. We're just trying to distinguish. This is just a visual, and you've had that visual of where things are happening for those of you that are more visually inclined. What's going to happen to 2030? In your last meeting, the question is, okay, we've been growing. What's happening to 2030? So this is one of the key slides. This is in the next one that you may want to pay attention to. And again, District 4, most populous, and projected to grow even faster than before. And again, District 1 is the least populous. District 1 and District 2 are kind of like, are competing. So they are in terms of around 40,000. But again, notice the difference. Over 90,000 people between commissioner districts by 2030. Now, again, projected range is at 21%. Compare that to 7.7% back in 2021 where they last did reapportionment. And the target is 10%. Is this an anomalous? It's not anomalous. It's a normal progression. We're just a fast-growing county. And come 2031, some of you will be participating commissions will be participating, all of you will be participating as members of the public, potentially, in the redistricting for the county. So this is going to be addressed right away. And again, the county has the depth, the bench depth, and the expertise to get this done. This is what it looks like. Again, if you're not from here, you'll be scared by this, but we are a fast-growing county. So this is something that should not surprise a lot of people. To conclude, 1.56 million people, third largest population in the state, fourth largest economies in the state. Because we are attracting the largest number of people and the largest number of jobs to the state, we are studying how to expand the urban service area. So you may have heard that in social media, on the newspapers, also in some emails out there. We have expanded it near Waimama. We're looking at the I-4 corridor and also Little Manatee. So we're looking at potential areas to expand, because what we want to do is when development happens, we want the county to plan for this development and be ready to serve this development. And again, it's a tool to make sure that we preserve our rural areas, and it's just, we don't have urban growth encroaching into our beautiful rural areas and again, parks and things like that. So again, by 2030, District 4 is going to attract the most new residents, and the range will jump to 21%. Again, we're not worried, because that's what happens. Range just changes, things diverge, and then I trust that the technical staff and of course yourselves and the commissioners will be able to address that through the reapportionment. That's all we have. Thank you.
We're open for questions or comments. I'm going to ask once more, and then we're going to adjourn the meeting. Unless you want to keep working. No? We have one other agenda item. Do you want to try to work on that other agenda? Or just, any other questions? Thank you.
And again, you all know how to contact us. If you have any questions, I'm happy to discuss one-on-one if you need to. I know this was kind of fast. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you again. We have the item 7, which was the power section that was presented by Chris Ann Hall. And we have her comments, and we have the comments from our staff attorney. Do you wish to discuss that item, or do you want to defer that to the next meeting? Anybody got an opinion?
Next meeting, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Next
we can
meeting?
defer it, but I don't think, it's not going to take long. We've pretty much worked it out between us, so we can defer it to the next meeting.
Defer?
I make a motion to defer it to the next meeting.
We have a motion to defer item 7 to the next
Second.
meeting. Is there a second? Yeah. Where was? Who? Oh, Melissa? Melissa Snively. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. All right, next meeting planning. I think you heard we're going to talk about the financial side of adding commission seats. And obviously, we're going to carry this item forward for discussion at the next meeting. Was there anything else slated for next month, for August?
Chair?
Yes.
I think we were.
Oh, yes, your item.
Yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't secure the budget officer to give the data that Mrs. Jarosh wanted to deal with the financial impact statements. They'll be available next month. So that'll be our third topic for next month. So we'll start talking after we get that financial data for the commission seats. We'll start talking about how we're going to wrap that decision up. You know, what choices there are and how we're going to get our hands around it, that kind of stuff. So that's the plan for next month. Any other discussion? Mr. White?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just for the board members to know, historically, we've always invited the county administrator, and we've had, I remember Dan Clayman, he came before the Charter Review Board, and he purchased the board personal books and all kind of pamphlets and everything to educate the Charter Review Board members. So it's not something new. We've had the county administrator willingly and voluntarily come before the Charter Review Board. So don't feel like you're doing something out of line when you ask for the county administrator to come before the Charter Review Board of Hillsborough County.
I've invited her myself.
Okay.
Any other comments or discussion? Thank you all. Appreciate you being here. Have a good night.